warm welcome to our IGEL Community Meetup of July 2024. Today we have Matthias with us. Let me start sharing my presentation, our presentation for a couple of minutes. So you should see my screen right now. And let me start it. And let me switch. Just a guess, you are seeing the presentator mode, not the presentation mode, right? Mm-hmm. Or is it already the good one?
Oh, looks good.
Looks good? Yeah. Okay, perfect. And let's get the session started. So welcome everyone to our July meetup. So we know for our North American folks who will watch the recording that this week is a special week for you. You have the 4th of July, the Independence Day, which we Europeans are always relating to a great movie with Smith. But I hope you will have a good time off and enjoy maybe a couple of time with your families. So first of all, I want to mention that we have a second session with our product management happening on this Thursday, so in 2 days, which had nothing, at least from the topic itself, to do with what we are covering today. So please join us on Thursday if you can. I know it's 4th of July and I know it's not perfect, but we had to move the call due to some last minute changes on our product management team. So just in case, 2 different topics and 2 very important for your daily work in the IGEL ecosystem. So let's welcome Matthias for the IGEL community session on the 20 news around Disrupt. But before going into the session, just a short summary about what is happening next. So we will have a short break, so to say, between mid of July until mid of August, where we will not do any meetup in that moment because most of our partners and customers are on PTO time. So we will see us again on the 22nd of August together with Andreas Markowski, who will share deepest news around security. And we will also get news from Sarah Wiskirchen around the new knowledge base. Second session, also happening in August, we are extremely busy to the time, is around Disrupting Munich this time. So we're talking about the news happened on Miami today, but we obviously have another meeting, another Disrupt event happening in Munich soonish. So on the 16th of September, we will show you how to register at the end of the session, but just in case we want to give you all the details about the event and what will be shared there at the teaser on the 27th of August, together with our VP of Marketing, Karl Gersch. And guess what? There's also some Easter egg, right, René? Talking about podcast.
Yeah, so for Munich, we're having again a huge community lounge in the main area, so you cannot miss it. This is really cool. And if you already listened to the podcast with John Moody, it was a lot of fun. And we have also Andy Pryor joined the team of IGEL, and we're planning the first episode of format with John Moody, Andy Pryor, and maybe a special guest we're discussing at the moment. But this will be some highlight of the community lounge. And when we talk about podcasts, you probably saw today, Omnissa is now live, and I will have Holly Lehman on the podcast, and some people from Workspot are also on the pipeline. So make sure you click in Spotify, Apple Podcast, and check it out. It's really worth, and as Sebastian said, it's also really worth to join Disrupting Munich because this will be a fantastic event.
Definitely. Thank you, René. So let me stop sharing because now the interesting part of the session will start. Matthias, the stage is yours.
Perfect. So let me set up my stuff. I hope it's working. Share screen. Ka-ching, ka-ching.
So it starts sharing. It looks good. We see the picture of your holidays.
Yeah.
Nice.
Perfect. I like that.
Nice food.
Perfect. Good. So yeah, hopefully you didn't see the pictures of my holiday. So yeah, welcome everybody, and thanks for spending time with me on the community meetup. And probably some who don't know me, I'm the CTO at IGEL, so everything that's related to product is something that I'm very proud of and keen to work with the team. To build IGEL OS 12, UMS 12, and all of the services around. And yeah, so let me give you a little bit of an update of all of the things that we have talked about at the Disrupt event in Miami, and I'm also going to give you a little bit more context on some of the details that we've delivered or that are close to be delivered based on the announcements. So first of all, I think I want to talk to you a little bit about the importance of apps, and that's not only for mobile phones or for smartphones in general. Apps are also a key element of our ability to provide you with features and solutions with OS 12. So in the course of the last year, we've launched OS 12 in April last year. We have grown the application portal, the app portal, for over 50 plus apps. We are speeding up. Actually, I think we are close to have 60 apps on the portal. This is for us a key element to drive more bandwidth, more capabilities, but also be more current in terms of updates. So for instance, browsers, I don't know how many updates we are delivering on Chrome browsers due to security updates and stuff of that nature. You've probably also seen that currently there's a big open SSH issue in the market. So the team is already building updates for OS 12 and OS 11 to make sure that you as our customer are staying safe. And yeah, the app portal is not only being delivered with IGEL apps, but we have also more and more IGEL ready partners joining the app portal and build apps for IGELOS. So custom partners like ControlUp, Frame, and many others are building, just to mention that as an example, are building apps for the IGEL app portal to deliver new capabilities and features. And what we've seen is that the velocity of being able to deploy those updates with OS 12 has dramatically increased. So you don't need to update the firmware anymore. You just update a single app that allows you to be more up to date. You have less validation times and requirements to get code in that you probably don't want, because in the past with OS 11 you always had like full firmware setups. And that is unlocking new use cases for us too. And talking about those new use cases, one of the things that we are seeing as a requirement from customers of the field, but also where we think that we can add value, are local apps on OS 12. Now you might think, every app is local, but actually it's about where the processing is happening. And so actually with those local apps, we see that people are interested to deploy their own applications. I'm going to talk a little bit about the IGEL app portal going forward, the IGEL app creator portal, which allows you as a customer or as a community member to build an app and actually deploy it to your infrastructure. And with that, you can think about multiple new types of applications that you can run on IGELOS. And just as an example, we have implemented Zoom as a local client, so not Zoom VDI, but you actually can run Zoom natively on IGELOS. We have projects where we have a lot of developers that are accessing a specific IP that the customer wants to protect. So we are also able to provide an IntelliJ or something like Microsoft, what is it called, Code View, which is also a local app to edit source code, or to use things like Teams as a progressive web app locally on the device. The reason for doing this is sometimes it provides a better user experience, right? Because you render it locally on the device, but it's also providing secure access to applications with a thin operating system and a secure operating system like IGEL OS 12. And last but not least, managing those as apps, they're easy to be managed and deployed. So stay tuned. You will see more of those local apps on OS 12 going forward. Talking about another new use case that is picking up really quickly is the ability to not only render VDI and desktop as a service content, but also to use browser to access SaaS applications natively on IGELOS. And in this use case, one of the projections that Forrester did was that in 2024, SaaS sales will hit 75% of new enterprise software purchases. And that's, I think, a matter of fact that new apps, new functionalities, it's not normal anymore to have Windows applications being built, but to have those applications being built as a SaaS application. And with that, there's a growing demand that enterprises can access those SaaS applications natively on IGEL aside with VDI or desktop as a service use cases, because that's also a fact. Windows apps will not go away. So things like COBOL or terminal emulation software, it's still there, right? So it's a core. In many enterprises, it's a core process and a core workflow. Without mainframes and terminal emulations, organizations can't operate. So, and I think that's the same thing that you will see with Windows. You will see a mix of Windows applications as core apps, but as well also SaaS applications being provided. And in this case, you probably don't want to have a typical browser, because you want to have, as an enterprise, you want to make sure you have secure access, you have full control and visibility of what's going on with the browser, and you can provide great usability for both worlds, talking about Windows applications still being a core requirement, but also browser applications. And we are going to solve for this. You've probably seen the announcements. We are adding more browsers to IGEL OS. So right now we have Firefox and Chrome available. We have announced the Citrix Enterprise browser availability, but also our joint activity with Island. And you will shortly see, and that's really brand new off-the-shelf Edge browser from Microsoft will also be released very soon on IGEL OS 12 as an application. So spoiler, we have not talked about this yet. So that's why I'm sharing it with you guys here. So browser is going to be the fourth pillar of what IGEL is delivering. So we range from terminal emulation to VDI, desktop as a service, and SaaS applications that you can deliver securely on IGEL OS. Identity and access management. We've done this initially with OS 12 to support Microsoft Entra ID. At that time, it was still called Azure Active Directory. We do support Okta and Ping Identity. In the course of the year, we've also enabled in general access for OpenID Connect and OAuth 2.0 capabilities as identity providers. So yeah, for instance, in the French market, there's a specific identity provider that is using OpenID Connect and OAuth technology to work. And you just can configure it and actually manage your user identities on OS 12. We are never managing users. We are only managing identities on OS 12. And that's a key differentiator, because basically you don't want to have a user on the endpoint. You want to make sure that you can manage the identity, keep that identity on the endpoint, and connect to your services. And that's what we do with IGEL OS 12. The next logical step for us, because that's also growing demand, is FIDO support. So you will also see in the identity and access management component that we are adding in FIDO capabilities, with things like YubiKeys or things of that nature, that you have an additional technology that, aside from MFA, is allowing you for secure identity and access management. Another big thing that we've seen with customers, especially in healthcare, is endpoint disaster recovery. Jason Maffera was talking about this at the Disrupt event. There were some technical hiccups, I think, with the slide deck, but nevertheless, he managed it really well. And so the basic idea is, and I like this term, simply IGEL it. So what does this mean? So if a device there are two ways. One is proactive. So remove Windows on the endpoint, deploy IGEL OS. And with that, if you're ransomware, your IGEL endpoint is very likely not to be affected, but you can take the endpoints out of the equation and focus on setting up and getting your infrastructure back up and running, which already is a huge task. Or as an alternative, if you have a reactive solution, you can simply use a UD Pocket and put this UD Pocket aside, and as soon as your device is being ransomware, turn off the device, plug in the UD Pocket, turn on the power, and boot into IGEL OS. And at this point, you have the ability to make sure that there's no reinfection, and there are ways that you get your infrastructure back up and running quite easily.
That's, by the way, something that a use case that we are not talking a lot around the UD Pocket disaster recovery, but usually if you have a hard disk which is compromised by some viruses, you will not want to access the data. That's absolutely right. But you have other use cases where you still want to access maybe files which are stored locally. I'm not talking about a virus, but maybe a hardware failure or something like this. That's where also the UD Pocket can help you to get at least access to that data and check if you want to restore something out of it. So just sharing this use case for the person who is listening.
Absolutely. And if you have ideas and feedback on this, we are more than happy to talk and discuss about this, because I think this is a great opportunity for especially healthcare deployments to make sure that they get back online again fast. Cool. I also want to talk a little bit to you about the IGEL preventative security model, and I think it would be great. Can we do a poll? Who has ever heard about the IGEL security model, preventative security model? Is that possible, Sebastian? Huh?
Consider it done. I will be on it in a second.
Super. So let me share a little bit about the idea of the preventative security model. And the principle is today in many places, vicious cycle of monitor, detect, mitigate, and resolve, which is something where you put more agents on, you put more log files on, you put more agents on the endpoint to make sure you can actually detect that something's wrong in your infrastructure. And typically this means that you are behind the curve, right? So you probably have already missed the point where the infection has started when you get attacked. And what we are trying to do with IGEL OS is to make sure that those attack vectors that you see are reduced to the maximum. So prevent attack vectors, prevent threats as much as you can with the way how we have architected IGEL OS. How that works is basically, IGEL OS is able to run on all x86 hardware platforms. And this is basically one of the things that you need to manage in your infrastructure. Number two is think about the protocols that you want to connect to, whether it's VDI, DAS, or browser. IGEL can provide for this too. And then we, in that mix, and Klaus was talking about the 3-ring circles, and obviously you see 3 rings here. You also need to manage things like identity management. How do I, monitor and manage my endpoints with the unified endpoint management solution? And how does secure service edge and SASE solutions come in the mix? And the way how we look at it, IGEL with the preventative security model is able to address all of those needs. We are the integrational point for hardware support. We have all the technology stacks integrated that allow you to do VDI, DAS, and browser. And by the way, you can also isolate the access from VDI and a local browser. You can make sure that it's containerized. I talked about the way how we are managing identities. That's a smart logging methodology. And we provide hooks and toolings to connect to your identity access management solution of choice, to have a unified endpoint management solution in place. And we are adding more and more SaaS in place. What this means is the preventative security model actually is able to reduce the attack surface dramatically. We are currently also working with the American DoD on their Zero Trust architecture document that they've just released to see how much IGEL is enabling those Zero Trust architecture requirements. It does not mean that IGEL OS is a Zero Trust product, but we are supporting Zero Trust architectures the way how IGEL works. We are simplifying the way how you secure the endpoint, but by changing the operational model. And in the end, this all results into capabilities that ransomware attacks are significantly reduced. So far we've never been hacked by ransomware. We've seen We have integrated those the major identity and access management solutions, and we are also now moving forward. And I have another piece to talk about that, to enable conditional access and contextual access capabilities. So we did some announcements with Microsoft, and stay tuned. We are also adding additional conditional access capabilities going forward. And last but not least, we are supporting specific solutions for healthcare with Imprivata or Authex. And if you have a look on the American federal business, we are also supporting things like 90-meter as a very specific smart card solution. What this does, it allows you to address a lot of the capabilities that you as a customer or your partners are looking at. Endpoint DR, I was talking about this. How do I make sure that I can move to Windows 11? Sustainability is a part of that place. So you have a topic that you can talk from very different angles about the PSM model. And I think Andreas Markowski in the meetup, he will make a deep dive. So I'm probably just scratching the surface on this one. I'm pretty sure that Andreas is able to give you much more details and insights in how the PSM model is helping your deployment in your business. And talking about all of those different components, let me share with you a little bit what we are doing together with our partners on this. So the first thing that we did announce was IGEL, to get what IGEL and Citrix are doing together. And there was this very good infographic that Calvin Su was presenting about how IGEL with the thin operating system and the ability to leverage NetScaler capabilities is allowing you to provide zero trust access to all apps. And this is not only for connected to Windows and Linux desktops, but also now to SaaS and web apps by using the Citrix enterprise browser capability. And I think this is one of the key topics for us, integrating with partners, making sure that we are creating an architectural design that allows you to solve for specific problems. Talking about this, the second announcement was IGEL OS is going to have the Citrix enterprise browser capability in place. There was a very short video that Scott Lane was doing. So just as a side note, there was a small typo in that video, and we saw this in the day before we had the presentation. And Scott said, I can't leave the typo in. So he was redoing the video overnight. So if Scott is ever listening to this video, thank you so much for redoing the video. That's really great. What you basically see here is the capabilities that the enterprise browser feature is adding. So you have control, you have policies that you can apply, making sure things cannot be copied. You see the ability also that clipboard access can be controlled. So sorry if that's flickering, but I didn't change to movie. I think this is good enough. Sebastian,
is it good. It was good.
Yeah. So as you see, you can access, provide policies. Everything is centrally rolled out through the Citrix policy management tooling. You can also, I don't know what he's doing right now. So you can also provide watermarking as a capability, so that if people are taking pictures, you can track this back who was releasing or disclosing such an information. So there are a lot of useful features in there that allow you for a more enterprise-grade capability, making sure that the browser is being used the way you want it to use, and it's not opening up additional attack vectors in that space. All right, so let me see what else we have here. I think this is typing in. Yeah, and that's copy paste limitations. Yeah. Good. So with Microsoft, we also had some great announcements, and one of the things that I also want to remember you on. So we started with Microsoft around 5 years ago, talking about, hey, there's something up and coming. At this time, it was called Windows Virtual Desktop. And we jumped on the train really early together with Microsoft, and so far we have really made great progress on the integration of the AVD client. We've introduced Windows 365 as a supported app. Think about the Windows 365 app as the equivalent to the Windows app that is available from Microsoft. And we are now starting to really address some specific vertical use cases. So healthcare, for instance, in North America, something where we have a first AVD deployments, running clinical workflows together with Imprivata on those endpoint devices. Another key milestone that we've achieved together with Microsoft is the support of Windows 365 Frontline, meaning that you can use one cloud PC and you can have multiple users connecting to that cloud PC. And from a licensing point of view, you don't have to have a single individual cloud PC for every user. So think about shift workers and that type of use case. So the way how we are managing licensing and we are managing the connection is in line with how Microsoft looks as Windows 365 Frontline. And last but not least, I was briefly talking about this, unlocking first clinical workflows in North America, Imprivata. Also, by the way, in Europe, Imprivata is picking up, and we are the only ones in the market that are able to connect, to use Imprivata to tap and go to connect to your AVD desktop. We've worked very closely with Microsoft, the Imprivata, and customers to make sure that this is a great experience. It's mostly about the speed of tapping in and the ability to drop to your desktop quickly. And with that tap and go experience, we can have exam room applications or also computer on wheels solutions or workstation on wheels solutions where you can visit patients in their room. What we've also introduced, and that's about the ability to use conditional access capabilities. And we are close to release the Intune client now, is our support in OS 12 for Microsoft Intune.
Matthias, you can't imagine how much requests we already received. When can we get our hand on that software, please? And I know a couple of folks out there are already asking, so please be prepared to get a question on this.
I'm pretty sure about this, and let me make we clarify this offline then, and we definitely want to make sure that you guys get hold of it quite early. So the key use case here are two things. One is the first time IGEL OS endpoints are visible as an object in Intune. So if you consider your Intune deployment as a single pane of glass for all of your assets, now IGEL OS is not an alien anymore. It's being shown and displayed in the Intune setup. But the second big great feature around this is the ability to respect conditional access policies. And in this case, conditional access is something that what we've heard from customers it's key that IGEL is not an exception. So you did poke a hole in your conditional access policy system by saying, hey, IGEL devices are allowed to connect to your My Infrastructure without conditional compliance regulations. Now with the Intune client being deployed, we can put conditions in place like only IGEL devices that are connecting to my UMS are allowed to connect into my infrastructure. Because what you don't want to do is that anyone is downloading IGEL from our website, deploys it, and because he has some credentials, is logging into your system. That device is not being managed by you. So the cool news here is we have a lot of flexibility to define conditions and make sure that the devices are required to meet those conditions. And I think this is a great step forward. It's a first step for us to have a conditional access capability integrated in IGEL OS. Broadcom, sorry for that, now it's Omnissa. I was too slow, I didn't change it. So Omnissa, we also had some nice announcements. This is still in work in progress. So the key feature here is that IGEL OS is able to also securely connect to Workspace ONE UEM, so their Unified Endpoint Management solution. And in principle, it is nothing more, nothing else. It is enabling IGEL OS to download a device-specific certificate. And with this certificate, the device then is allowed to connect to your Horizon infrastructure. So that allows you to also say, okay, only devices that are meeting the criteria of having a certificate that is specific to this endpoint is able to access the Horizon infrastructure. So it's Workspace ONE access together with Workspace ONE UEM that allows you to download this certificate and then only connect to your Horizon infrastructure if that device owns a valid certificate. Another big announcement, I briefly talked about this, is Island and the ability to leverage Island browser capabilities, the secure enterprise browser from Island, to connect to your infrastructure. We are seeing a lot of great requests from customers coming up on this. And the reason why that is the case is that you have the stacked layer, and this looks like an eye candy chart, but in fact what it says is you have total control over the operating system with IGEL OS being a small, secure operating system with management applied, and you can put a browser on top that has a huge capability of configuration and controls that you can deploy in addition. So secure operating system fully managed and a browser that is fully managed that allows you also to have total control over the capabilities and features that you want to expose to your endpoint users. How that looks, that's another small video that we've put together. It's super simple. You just launch IGEL OS, you launch the browser, you log in to that browser, and with that you get access to all of the features and capabilities. You have progressive web app capabilities, and you have a lot of monitoring and detection capabilities integrated. All right, then another important piece in our strategy is the announcement that we did together with Lenovo. And here the key takeaway is IGEL has announced that we are working together with Lenovo. In fact, we are actually supporting an Intel infrastructure, is that IGEL will expose acceleration capabilities for AI workloads. And what that is, every new modern AI PC has a so-called NPU, a neural processing unit. And that NPU can be used to accelerate AI workloads of any kind of on your PC or on your device. So we are the first Linux operating system exposing with an app that we will release the NPU capabilities. So the first use cases that you can see is rendering local large language models. If you have a requirement to run in a air-gapped scenario and you still want to have AI, ChatGPT capabilities, type of capabilities, you can run a local large language model on that device, and the NPU is accelerating this. We're also in discussions right now with our partners on how you can use those NPU capabilities going forward. Things you could think about audio-video optimizations, right? So whether it's noise cancellation capabilities for your audio, in video, if you have low bandwidth Wi-Fi connections, you still want to have a good video experience. You can render frames in between that have probably been lost. These types of things that it can do. So the key statement here is, as we did expose graphic card capabilities in the past to accelerate, video and audio experiences, or do enable real-time conferencing, we also see that exposing the features of that NPU is going to drive complete new workloads in IGEL. And also, think about security. There's also, behavioral detection. These types of things you can now use with the NPU, and it's much more. You're not wasting CPU cycles. You can offload this to the NPU and do the interference in an optimized component of your hardware infrastructure. So stay tuned. That is going to be also a big play going forward, and we have a lot of interest from technology partners that want to integrate with these NPU capabilities.
Just sharing maybe a thought that we had on the topic in the community, but also in the technical publication team. So GPT-4All, like an example, which is a great open source project regarding large language models, is not supporting NPU officially at the moment, but they are looking on that topic quite extensively. So please be prepared that you will see a lot of new applications going around as soon as such kind of project will support this. So we are on the spearhead at the moment, but I expect to have a lot of new features coming over the software side over the next weeks, not to say months. So that's a huge step. Great stuff.
Cool. All right, and we also had some great announcements around a use case that is very dear to my heart, because I think it's a super great use case for IGEL and the way how we operate, which is digital signage. And you've probably seen the Dr. Haas play. So I was wearing a doctor stethoscope and white glove, so white coat. So I probably had a hobby doctor. And basically, so the key message here is we see a lot of customers using IGEL in the traditional office space. But what we've realized also is that many customers start to use IGEL for their digital signage workflows. And why is that? And I can't recall this all of the time. So every time I'm arriving on an airport, if you just look around how many dead digital signage the documents you find, or just recently I was at a retailer and they've now introduced those self-service cash things. And actually the device was showing activate your windows. So why would you want to show this to? I thought, okay, is that safe? Can I really put my credit card data in here? So the point that I want to make, I think in a lot of those scenarios, and also if you ask customers and partners, who's managing your digital signage devices? What is running on those devices? A lot of people don't know. And I think this is a great opportunity to make sure that you can track the asset with UMS. You have a secure operating system, and you can render the content that is required in a secured browser. We're currently playing around with a super stripped down browser that is really secure. You don't have a desktop in place. We are rendering to the screen directly. That is probably going to be our an app that is dedicated for digital signage use cases, so that you can render websites, you can render videos, and it's all about security in mind, small attack vector, and the ability to manage that asset as much as you can. So that was it. In this case, we were talking about a healthcare use case, so we showcased this on very different devices. And if you have ideas or feedback on this digital signage use case, also share with us. We are super interested to learn how you guys are using this, what ideas you have. I've seen this now with some customers really in the thousands that we even weren't aware of. And I want to make sure that this is a use case that we're driving forward and that we're adding more capabilities into IGEL and the UMS for those digital signage use cases. And just as a summary, we had around 20 announcements at the IGEL Disrupt in Miami. A lot of these things we have already delivered on. We are working on things like the Citrix Uber agent support with the Uber agent team here in Germany. We have a lot of great content, a lot of great features that will come out. Stay tuned for the App Creator portal. That is going to be launched just briefly before the Disrupt event in Munich. And talking about that, we don't only have the Disrupt in Miami, but we are also going to focus. We will have another event in Munich in September. I think by accident, a week before Oktoberfest, as far as I know. And we will also come
Was
up
it
with
an accident?
What's that?
Are you really sure it was an accident?
Yes. Stay tuned. Also in Munich, we're coming up with a lot of great new input, great new capabilities. We are focusing more around also some new manufacturing workflows that we are providing. So stay tuned on this one. So this is also a super new use case that we see more and more coming in the context of IT and OT converging. IT and OT are coming together, and you see a lot of requirements that OT has in terms of stability and capability. That this is also a great use case and a great capability set that IGEL can address and help with in those deployments. So I don't want to spoil it too much, but there's some great new use cases and capabilities that we want to present on stage. It's not going to be a repeat of what we had in Miami. We're coming up with new focus topics and capabilities that we want to share with you guys here in Europe. So that's the end of my presentation. I hope you were able to take a little bit more info away. I gave you some updates, and over to you, Sebastian.
Thank you, Matthias. We already did. I mean, even if we attended Miami, Renee was there in UK, I still had a couple of slides which I didn't use. So good that we attended that session. Renee, because Matthias just mentioned the Disrupt in Munich, I guess you can share with us how to register for that great event, right?
Yeah, I can. Let me share my screen really quick.
Lovely.
So I created a slide where you have a QR code where you can that you can scan with your mobile phone. If you're insider or VIP, you already got your code, but for everyone else in the community or here in the call, we're having a discount code. It's IGEL Community 24. As I mentioned, it will be a fantastic event with a lot of insights, a lot of tech tracks. We have, I think, Microsoft again there doing a boot camp. Different other vendors doing breakout sessions. As I said, we're having a lot of follow-ups, panels in our community lounge, and it will be a great event. So if you were in the Infinity before, you know that IGEL Disrupt is really worth to come, and so hope that I see a lot of you guys. If you have any questions around the event, please reach out to Sebastian or me or write in the community, and we are happy to answer.
Thank you, Renee. So just in case for those who are listening, if you're an insider, you are getting a free entrance, which is just one additional reason, an additional good reason to become an IGEL Community Insider. So thank you very much, Renee. Great stuff. So let's catch up on the question that we received in the Q&A section. Renee and myself would take them over and ask lively our great Matthias what he thinks about it. I would just make maybe the start and then hand over to Renee. So one question, because it's something which might also being asked to Andreas, but since security, I guess the CTO can also answer that. What new security features are being integrated into IGEL OS and UMS 12 to address the latest cybersecurity threats? Sorry.
So I think that's a very great question. So there are a couple of things that we are doing. So one is, I think, table stakes today. So we have a clear setup on our product security team. That is, we are reviewing all of the code. We are reviewing the way how we are designing new features by the security team. We are going through multiple pen test campaigns a year. Every product that gets released before it's being published has passed the first pen test campaign to make sure that it's being reviewed. The second thing is that's again organizational. We've just recently passed the ISO 27001 certification. And by the way, it was ISO 27001 2022, so the latest revision. We learned that we've been the first company on this revision, so it took actually the audit team a little longer to pass that, because they had to debate a couple of things. Anyways, so with that, we also are now set up in a way how we are designing the product. We have to secure the software development lifecycle. We have defined SLAs on how we are reacting on critical and high issues. So we've probably seen, I was just talking about the OpenSSH issue, which has now been rated up to critical. So it started with high, and we started, we also initially said, okay, we are probably going to put it on critical, and it's now been decided today that this is also critical. So you see also in security, it's not a black and white. There is always a debate required, because it also depends on the way how you're using the piece of software. In this case, it was super clear that it's critical. So we are now, the team is working on emergency releases to get you an update out in the course of next week. So that's our commitment. We are shooting for 7 working days after the upstream patch is available. So the team is running now to get this out as quick as possible. That's the commitment on the one hand side from an organizational point of view. So what's getting in the system is things like that we are sandboxing more and more applications. So we try to really separate the applications as much as we can. We have also, in the way how we are, onboarding new apps on IGEL, all of those apps, whether they are built by us or whether they are built by a third party, go through a review on the security team. We have specific measures, that you can avoid, like privilege escalations. And very often, and this is sometimes annoying to our partners, we are pushing back and say, hey, for IGEL, you need to change it this way, right? So permission-wise, or where you're writing things, or how you're structuring as privilege management. This is very often where we have a couple of rounds to feedback. The good news is, as soon as it's been published, it's compliant with our security regulations, and going forward, the products are faster deployed. Secondly, as a third part, what are we adding in? So we are adding in new partners. So you've seen that I was talking about Secure Service Edge and SASE. So things like Zscaler, things like Netscope are getting integrated. We work together with Fortinet, for instance. So you will see a lot of applications being integrated in the system to make sure that we have state-of-the-art capabilities exposed. And last but not least, the browser is coming with new requirements. So far, with VDI and DAS, there was a clear distinction. This is configuration and data that helps you to connect to something, and then the processing of data is being done in that remote place. If you think about browser, you have caching, you have cookies, you have critical data, and we are trying to make sure that the data at rest is kept at a minimum, and that you as an admin, you can decide on how you are managing the cache data, whether you want to have things stored permanently or not, and that you have more control over your infrastructure. So we are coming up with some new features and capabilities to give you more control over the way how browser data is being processed. And there are continuous improvements that we are driving with the way how the protocols work within IGEL, the way how we are separating the system, and how we are optimizing the application workflow, so that you have a clear segmentation of data and processing capabilities with those apps. So I hope that's answering the question. Sorry, it took a little bit long. But
it does. It does. You're already answering 2 other questions, so very good. Thank you very much, Matthias. I will not ask how it looks like around UMS in a portal, but we can discuss that in a second. René, would you like to take over the next one?
Yeah, or maybe we opened the round because we said, hey, everybody can talk to our CTO. So you're able to unmute yourself and ask a question if you want. So before we move on, I want to give you the opportunity. If you have a question, you can raise it.
In the meantime, we can do some elevator music. Don't be shy.
Don't be shy. Yeah, at least we ask, because I don't want
Yeah, right.
You took over and you talked all the time. So Matthias, as we all three are very long in the company, and we saw many changes within the last 10 years with IGEL. What do you think? How is the future of IGEL looking? So when you're saying or you talked about the preventative security model, what I really like the word in the news story, but in general, how do you see IGEL in the next years?
Mm-hmm. And I think this is a very good question, because I started as a Linux developer and I like versioning. So I would currently rate IGEL as version 4 or 5-ish. And we can debate on the subsequent number, 4.1 or 5.0. I don't know. But I think going forward, the way how the market is changing, and what I was projecting before, right? So that there's more and more SaaS play. There's more and more of the requirement to kind of like future-proof your traditional Windows applications. And I'm preaching to the choir, meaning that you probably render this in your data center. So I was just recently listening to a Gartner event where they said, okay, there's an acceleration on Windows applications being moved to a cloud deployment or a virtualized deployment to make sure you can make this application accessible and modernize it in a way that it's being usable across multiple endpoints, and that's independent from the protocol stack that you're using, right? Whether it's ABD, whether it's Citrix, VMware, Horizon, or things like Parallels or WorkSpot. I think they all provide different flavors of making sure that Windows is still accessible, and at the same time, you see that those SaaS applications are requiring your endpoint to function differently. And we see now customers that are using that have a clear workflow towards a browser-centric use case. So IGEL is the perfect setup to address the past with VDI. And VDI use cases or virtualized use cases that very often come with peripheral requirements. So you want to have your scanners and stuff in place. And at the same time, you want to make sure that you can render browser websites or SaaS applications securely. We are focusing also now to give more progressive web app capabilities into the system. So that's clearly for us making sure that we can access the world of today or yesterday legacy and new SaaS applications of tomorrow in a unified infrastructure. I was talking briefly about manufacturing and the converging of IT and OT. And that is clearly also something that is opening up very new use cases and markets for us. So this is a super interesting market that we are looking at. Solving for the problem of how do I make sure that I can run my old OT application in a world that is more connected, because air-gapped is not the standard anymore in a lot of production. So there's a lot of networking and online connectivity required in modern production lines. And there's something that we also see where IGEL can be a secure container for very old applications like Windows 7 applications and Windows 7 applications, or even running MS-DOS. So stay tuned. I don't want to spoil any more of this. That's going to be a huge announcement during the Disrupt in Munich. And so this is where we also see that we can be a secure container for these types of applications. So it's not only the traditional desktop as a service VDI use case anymore. We see that the way how IGEL is functioning is opening up complete new use cases and can solve for problems in a more and more connected world where applications are definitely rendered in the cloud or in a data center, and where traditional industries like manufacturing sites are modernizing, and they will see challenges, right? So I just recently talked to a customer, said, how often do you want to update your infrastructure on your shop floor? And I said, ideally every 7 years. And I said, that's going to be interesting. So there need to be ways on how we can solve for those requirements. So I think it's the space is opening up. The small secure operating system is a great segue into very new use cases that we will address.
Awesome.
Very good. Thank you, Matthias. Thank you, Renee. So I would say we are 4 minutes ahead of our top of the hour. So at that moment, I would say let's close the call. Thank you, everyone who joined from our IGEL community members, but also from outside, as well as Renee and Matthias, our two wingmans today on the great topic about what to expect from the Disrupt event. We will share the recording as usual on the IGEL community on Slack. If you're not part of it, please join us on join.igelcommunity.com. And for most of you guys, see you hopefully in Munich. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.